Hi, I'm Mike Harrington, and in 2014, I embarked on a health journey resulting in my losing over 200 pounds on my own. Since then, I've been sharing my story and have become an advocate for healthy living. Welcome to Mike Inspires Me, a podcast show about health, wellness, and amazing people to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health. Today's podcast is based off an article I wrote back in 2017 called "It is Better to Look Good Than to Feel Good?" Why don't I go ahead and read the article? It is kind of short, and I'll give you some of my thoughts of my what I was thinking back then when I wrote it, and then kind of expand on today where I am and my thought process around this idea. There's an old Saturday Night Live skit in which Billy Crystal plays a character named Fernando, based on the suave Argentine-born actor Fernando Llamas. Fernando had two catchphrases which have stuck in my mind since I was a kid. For those of you who have seen the skit, you probably remember this line, "You look marvelous." But often he followed it up with, "It is better to look good than to feel good." And, we all know that is wrong. Obviously, the phrase was being used tongue in cheek. Being healthy is more important, right? Despite knowing that our overall health is ultimately more important, many of us push the limits to achieve aesthetic results. I should know. One of my primary motivators to lose over 200 pounds was not to be a spectacle anymore. I was ashamed of the way in which I looked and how I felt society judged me. There were many health-related issues I was concerned about. However, as I look back at the end of my journey, when I was pushing myself to exhaustion, I question what my motive was at the time. Don't get me wrong, I'm not putting myself down for wanting to have some pride in my appearance. Being morbidly obese for most of my adult life, I never really got to feel proud about how my body looked. So when I finally decided to do something about it and was seeing results, I became excited to push myself harder to achieve something that may not have been realistic. Losing 200 pounds in less than a year on my own was amazing in itself. And when people started telling me that I had lost enough weight, I didn't want to hear it. We often hear about models who suffer from eating disorders or how competitive bodybuilders push themselves beyond the limits to achieve the maximum cut look. I went from having one eating disorder prior to my health transformation into developing a new one. Looking back, I realized that it happened because I was afraid I would gain all my weight back. I now looked marvelous, but I didn't feel good inside. I started this journey at one of the lowest points of my life as my health was in jeopardy and I had given up my will to live. Almost a year later, after losing all the weight, I was beginning to see the effects of using less than healthy measures to lose even more weight. My body felt weak and tired. I was burnt out as I managed to eke out another 4 pounds loss in about 5 months. So I took some time to refocus. In less than a year, I had accomplished more than the average person has been able to do. I reversed my health conditions and now was normal-sized. And this quote's around normal-sized. Although cognitively I knew I was no longer super morbidly obese, part of me still felt self-conscious about the way I looked. I was now able to go into the store and buy any clothes I wanted. My family no longer had to ask for a table at a restaurant if we were offered a booth because I could now fit. I looked good, but I needed to feel good too in order to move on with my life. One thing I did was stop weighing myself because I realized it was becoming an obsession. Focusing on that number on the scale can become a distraction from health. At first, I was uneasy about not knowing my weight, but over time, I got used to the feeling. Every now and then, I wonder about how much I weigh, but since my clothes are fitting well, I don't worry much. The freedom has been liberating. I also began to focus on the quality of my nutrition. Over time, I have moved more towards plant-based foods, which have been fantastic for my health. I have more energy, my skin looks great, and I feel good inside. What I've discovered is that when I feel good on the inside, I also feel better about how I look. So although it is better to feel good than to look good, there is nothing wrong with having a little pride in your appearance. All right, I ended it. Stay awesome. Okay, so here's some thoughts about that. And, in reflecting back on this article, much of what my thought process was back then, because when did I say this was? Back in 2017? Yeah, so, we're going back 4 years ago at this time. And there's a lot of things that I've been learning along the way, and I still look at the fact that struggling with one's appearance is not the same thing as health issues, right? And I really, this is not to say that having excess body fat is healthy. I'm not saying that. But each of us is built a little differently, and each of us have different health goals that we want. The bodybuilder example, and I have a lot of friends who are bodybuilders. Many are professional bodybuilders, and they, especially the ones, they're doing competitive, are working towards a look. Okay. Now, sure, we could go out and try to do that too. And I will tell you, because I've talked to many of these guys and heard many of these guys, it's a lot of hard work, discipline and hard work to get that look. Okay. To get the muscles proportioned equally on both sides, and to get them to show and to have right proportions everywhere across the body, across the legs, chest, arms, everything, so that it's nicely proportioned, so that when they're in the competition and they're being judged for that look, okay, they can achieve the maximum results. But what does that have to do with health? Now, I'll tell you, and many of us know, it's no secret that many have used steroids and other products to push the limits of what they look. Now, obviously, that's a very obvious one. It's not healthy. We know that. And that's not the route I'm talking about. But there's other things that they need to do in order to get that very cut look, so that they can maximize, what they'll end up getting judged. And many of those things are not very healthy. Again, not picking with these guys. I love what they do. I admire, I have a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger downstairs in my workout room to kind of motivate me and kind of, now, am I ever going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? Probably not. Not even as tall as him, let alone am I doing near the work that he's had to do. And there is some genetic components. I think a lot of people assume there's a lot more genetic components. I think there's a combination of things, but we're all built different. Some of us have a tendency towards being thin. Some of us have a tendency towards having more lean muscle mass, and some of us have a tendency to put on more fat. Where am I going with all this, right? Well, with each of those things, requires a certain amount of discipline to change some of what your natural tendency is. If you have a natural tendency towards having a thin body or skinny legs, you're going to have to work hard to bulk those things up if that's what you want to do. A lot of my friends who I know who bodybuild, that's one of their chief complaints is their skinny legs. They got skinny calves or skinny thighs. Well, I'm going to tell you something. That ain't my problem. I've got huge calves and huge legs. And some of my friends have told me, boy, I'm jealous of your legs. Of course, I've got one calf that's slightly bigger, muscular and a little bit of edema. But, they look at my legs and say, man, I wish I had that. I'm like, it kind of sucks sometimes because, some pants I have to be careful because they may not fit my legs. Because I got very thick legs. They're strong. And it's obviously now with all the hiking and walking I do, I do get a lot. I don't have to do much to have big legs. Are they highly striated and, muscular looking? Nah, not really. They're thick and they are strong. But for me, is it worth it to go through all that work to achieve a look? To look good? Better than to feel good. I don't think it's really worth it for me. I'm not judging you if that's what you want, but you got to question sometimes if what you're doing is harming you more than, in your health, that is, more than, what the benefit may be in that, oh, well, now I look great, but, I've shot my health doing it. You got to question that. I would. Or maybe it's worth it to you. I mean, I used the example, I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago in one of my podcasts, and I talked about pro bodybuilder Ronnie Coleman, who I love the guy in a lot of ways because he's nutty and he's and amazing. He had probably the most amazing, and check him out. You can look him up, Ronnie Coleman. He's had one of the most amazing bodies. Did he use substances? Yes. Did he push himself beyond the limits? He sure did. Oh, he sure did. And to the point where he could barely walk. I haven't looked recently. I think he's still having trouble. But you got to wonder, was that worth it? Was that really worth it to push the aesthetic part of what you do so far that it affected your health? And many of the guys who have taken substances in order to achieve a look regret it. And one of my friends, Mr. Ontario, Sean Maves, talks about that, the use of products, steroids and other things with bodybuilders, and, how detrimental it is. And, I say to myself, because I do admire these guys, it's like, at what point is it aesthetics over health? Because you gotta say to yourself, if I'm trying to lose weight because I want to fit in certain pants or, or certain size, whatever, dress and those type of things, what am I going to do to get myself there? Now, there are many different ways in which one can get one there. You could, if you're super morbidly obese or morbidly obese, you could get surgery, okay? Maybe you could get liposuction, or you could get bariatric surgery and have the fat removed, or get to have, lose the weight through obesity surgery and get yourself there. There are risks. We're not getting into a whole discussion about weight loss surgery. I certainly have opinions about it. I'm kind of in the middle of the road, but I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest with you. On the other hand, what we're talking about is, this is not to say there are people who have bariatric surgery for health reasons. And certainly if somebody is beyond the point where their health is in jeopardy and surgery is probably their only option, which again, I still have opinions about that, then maybe the health risk is worth it in order to get the health benefit, because certainly a person who's 600 pounds that gets obesity surgery, and going through the risk of the obesity surgery, which is quite risky, the improved benefits outweigh that risk, right? So, but I think for a lot of people, not picking, but just, I think it's cosmetic for a lot of people. I don't like the fat around my waist. Now, fat around your waist and your stomach area is not healthy. We know that. In fact, studies have shown that people who carry more fat around the middle, that leads more to metabolic problems, heart problems, all kinds of problems, right? We know that, okay? And I've struggled with that still, but I also have, I have, because I lost a lot of weight, I have a little bit of excess skin from all that weight loss. Now I got a little pudge too, because I like to eat. But nonetheless, where am I going with all of this? With what I say about a lot of things, when I talk about your health and happiness being somewhere between broccoli and cookies, okay? And it might be, for some people, it's all broccoli and no cookies. For some people, because they don't really want to worry about health, it's all cookies, right? You get what I'm saying. But there are consequences for either, okay? If you deprive yourself too much of cookies or other things that you like, and you only eat healthy and you exercise all the time and you avoid going to functions with friends because you can't eat the food that's there, you could have orthorexia, which I struggled a little bit myself. When I lost all the weight, I became an extremist, or I didn't want to do certain things because of the fact that I was too worried I was going to lose my momentum and gain back everything I had gained. On the other hand, if you don't care at all, okay, well, that's fine, but there is a, who am I to define what your happiness is? If your level of health is what you're happy with, that's fine. If you're not happy with the way you look, there are choices. You can do something about it, but you got to be careful about what you're doing in order to get there. Is it better to look good than for your body to be healthy? Okay? For you to feel good. Because if you're not healthy, you're not likely going to feel good mentally, physically. You're going to have some sort of issues, even though you're pushing yourself to beyond a point. And I felt that at times because it became a problem when I became so obsessed with my health that towards the end, and I was really trying, the lowest weight I got down to was 194, which for 5'10", technically is still obese. And yet, on the other hand, I was being told by my family and friends, Mike, you look too skinny. And looking back at those pictures, I could see that. Now, I had lost a lot of muscle mass too, because, dieting, calorie restriction doesn't just target fat. When you do those things, it's not a specific science. Okay. And when I pushed myself more using intermittent fasting, carb cycling, all kinds of different things towards the end to try to hone down where I was. I did it pretty healthy for the first, 11 months of what I did in my journey to lose to 200 pounds. It was small adjustments here and there in my diet over time, which became big adjustments over time of learning to eat a lot more vegetables, a lot less sugar, and a lot less processed food, a lot less carbs, and a lot less refined carbs, and a lot more vegetable carbs, and whole grains, those type of things. So I learned to hone those things. I did a good job. But when I got to the end and I wasn't where I thought I should be, and I should preface that because having, to go on a journey when you're 400 and something pounds, I didn't even know where I was supposed to land. I didn't even know where I was supposed to be. And for some reason I had in my mind, 170, which is, what those stupid charts I'll, tell you for my height. But I'm a larger framed guy. I'm big boned, as my wife said. And again, I looked and I didn't see what I thought I should be seeing, And so in some ways I had another condition, where I body dysmorphia, which it's almost kind of like anorexics, in some ways. I still saw myself, and maybe I was going through sort of that, but as big, because the scale was telling me I was, and, I didn't know where I was supposed to be. At the end of the day, as I went through the process and I reevaluated everything I was doing, I started to realize a couple of things. Number one, there's a limit to just how far you can push it before you got to do other things, whether I need to go get surgery to remove skin from my stomach or become a even more health fanatic, which would further cause division with my family, because now suddenly I can't eat anything that's being brought in here. If Terry wants her chips and cookies and then I want to enjoy those things with her and live a semi-normal life amongst family and friends, it's kind of like a person, with a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction. You start cutting out certain people in your life because you can't, you can't be around them because you can't control your urges and it's not a lack of self-control, but you can't, you can't be around these things if that's what your addiction is, right? And I wasn't going to leave my family because I wanted to achieve a certain weight or a certain look, because at the end of the day, it's better to feel good. It's better to be healthy than to just look good. And that may not be a number on a scale. It may not be a size around your circumference, around your waist. It's something you got to figure out for yourself. How healthy do you want to be? How happy do you want to be? And what's reasonable for you to sustain? Here's that word again, right? Where I talk about it all the time. What's reasonable for you to sustain both health and happiness while looking good and feeling good. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Check out some of the other ones. Again, you can always write to me, Mike at MikeInspiresMe.com. Love to hear you. If you want to come on as a guest and have a good story that we write to me, Mike at MikeInspiresMe.com, and we can talk about things. I look forward to interviewing people with extreme weight loss, health journeys of any sort, of health. Love talking about those things, as well as health professionals, doctors, nutritionists, fitness professionals, anyone that has that passion like I do for inspiring people to take charge of their lives and their health. Go out there, stay healthy, and stay awesome. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mike Inspires Me podcast. Stay tuned for future episodes and check out some of the past ones you may have missed. For more information on me and my story, go to MikeInspiresMe.com. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Mike Harrington Official and on Twitter at Mike Inspires Me. Stay healthy and stay awesome.